Well, hi! I'm Kendall with RePlay for Kids at the RePlay for Kids creative space, and today I'm going to be showing you the difference between our black and our red kits and everything that we have inside them so that you too can adapt at home and find the materials that you need to adapt with us. All of the items that I have here today I will be showing down in the description. There is only one that we make in-house, and even then there are alternatives online that are very easy to find because they are pretty much quintessential to the soldering process. Any other questions you may have, you can comment down in the description of this video and I will be happy to answer them for you. I'd also like to remind you that there is a like button and there is a subscribe button, and that really does help us out with getting some visibility on these videos. Without further ado, let's start with the first item on our list, the difference between these two kits right here. So volunteers ask us quite a bit the difference between the red kit and the black kit we use, and that's because we bring them to workshops a lot, sometimes both, sometimes only one, and I'm here to say that the only difference is the soldering iron. So the black kit that we use has a battery operated soldering iron, and the red kit has a plug-in soldering iron. For the battery soldering iron, it comes in three parts: cover, iron itself, and a battery cartridge. This one specifically runs off double A's, and all you do is you throw the cartridge in the back there, slide it up, and it has a little lock on the back that you lock up, and simply turns on and off like so. You can set it down on the table. Very easy to use, it's very personal. The model we use specifically is a Hakko FX901, and I will say your mileage may vary depending on how severe of a job you need to do. If you need this iron to get very hot, we've had some trouble getting it to the heat it needs to for it to properly go onto some circuit boards, but other than that, fairly universal soldering iron. Now, as far as our plug-in iron goes, we use a Weller WP35. Very standard soldering iron, has no heat settings whatsoever, but it works fairly well. We've had no issues getting this to work on pretty much all of the boards that we work on and all of the wires we work with. Should be noted as well, also in the red kit will be a stand for your soldering iron, because of course you can't just set this down on a table. So those are the soldering irons we use, as well as the difference between the two kits. Everything else that goes into our volunteer at home toolkits is exactly the same. There is no deviation. We only differ between the soldering irons because it's easier to organize for us since we use both. With that small caveat out of the way, now I'd like to show you what else we have in this toolkit. All of the other items are everything you need to work on pretty much every toy under the sun besides our big cars back there. Everything in here is specifically handpicked to work to most dimensions. Sometimes you might need a different size screwdriver, but we have had no issue making all of these tools work on pretty much every toy that we have adapted in our library. Every kit that we have specifically has a bottle of hand sanitizer in one of the pouches on the front. Obviously, you don't need that if you're making this for your own home use, but I mean, it's hand sanitizer. Who doesn't need hand sanitizer? It's very useful. First things first, we have a hot glue gun. Most of our instructions actually do use hot glue, and it is very handy to have one of these. Just keep your hot glue gun, small one, with a couple sticks and a mat for it, and you're all good to go. As for our pliers and wire strippers, we have a set of needle nose pliers, a set of diagonal cutters. This is good for cutting off extra wire that may be left at the end of your jack, and two pairs of wire strippers, one yellow, one red. The only difference between these is the red pair is going to go from 10 to 22 gauge, and the yellow pair is going to go from 20 to 30 gauge. Now, the higher the number gauge of wire, the smaller it becomes. So the yellow pair we tend to use on the super fine wires that need to be stripped within plush toys. A lot of the wires there are very small. You end up stripping a 26 gauge wire, whereas the red pair is more good for universal use. It works on most of the wires that we use, the wire that is in our kit, as well as the wires that most toys have inside. Of course, screwdrivers are very key to opening up most toys. You will need a set of screwdrivers. The ones we use are 4 Phillips heads, all ranging in size, as well as a general medium-sized flathead. When it comes down to picking what screwdrivers you need, I would recommend just starting with a set, and then also looking at the toy you're working on beforehand to see if there's any other idea that you can gain from what type of screwdriver you will need. Some toys do actually use triangle screws and hex screws, so you will need to want to know that before you try to take apart that toy and don't have the correct screwdriver. In general, though, getting a generic set of screwdrivers ranging in size is probably the best bet. Most of those all-in-one kits will have something that will work for you without stripping the screw. The wire strippers, the pliers, and the screwdrivers are what we keep in the side pocket of our kit, and these are actually the final items that we have in the side pocket of the kit. That is a pen, always good to write stuff down about what you're experiencing with the toy if you have issues or if you're trying to learn how to adapt. The scissors and the tweezers, fairly self-explanatory. Some wires don't want to work with you, and you're going to move them with this, and you sometimes need to cut string if you're sewing or cut into the toy. And finally, we have a set of files. These all vary in size, angle, and shape, but they all will do the job of filing a notch in the toy. Alternatively, you can use a Dremel. Some of the smaller ones are called rotary tools, but we have a Dremel here. I will say it makes the job significantly quicker, but, you know, it's a power tool. Of course, ask a parent about using these, or if you are old enough, please be careful. Everything I've shown off so far is stuff in the side pocket of your kit and the main materials that will be necessary to work on most of the toys. Now to items at the bottom of the kit, which are your extra soldering items, tools that will help enhance your workstation, and some other miscellaneous stuff. So for the other items that will help enhance your workstation, first off, notepad for that pen we just had. Helps to write down any notes you have on the toy. And then I have a little baggie here of sandpaper, a wire to test the toy with. So if you need to see if something's going to activate correctly, you can just touch both ends to that area and see if it completes the circuit. And an alcohol swab. If there's corrosion on the battery compartment, this is your go-to. This will hopefully help eliminate some of that, if not completely, and good emergency use, I suppose, if you happen to cut yourself. Other items included as well are 2 different types of tape if you need to tape on a note to your toy and come back to it. We got some scotch tape on the side there. That's more for our use though. Electrical tape if you want to tape inside the toy. This is usually a good alternative for hot glue if you don't happen to have your hot glue gun handy. This is just as useful as long as you're covering the connectors. Battery tester, straightforward, to test batteries, make sure your batteries are working. Sometimes the easiest fix to a toy is, oh, are the batteries inside the toy and are they working? Always have one of these handy. And a screw plate. This will hold all of your metal materials, just like so. All of your screws and all of your extra metal bits, and even some of the plastic bits that come out of toys, you can just throw right here so that when you need to reassemble it, it's all right there for you, and you don't lose anything, because we all know that the floor eats screws, and you will never find them again. As for the items that you will want to have when you are soldering, of course, you will want solder. Can't do anything without that. Does need to function with the iron. You will want a wet sponge. Damp usually is what we usually refer to it. You don't need it dripping wet, but we have a bag with a sponge in it so that when you are soldering, you can wipe off any extra solder on there. The wire and jacks you will actually be adapting your toy with. Of course, can't really go anywhere unless you have something to adapt with. A solder sucker or a soldering wick. Now these are both useful if you get too much solder on your work area. You can press the plunger here and hit the button, and it will suction up any extra solder you have while it's heated. And the same thing goes for the wick. It's just not a mechanical item. You just have to wick it away with this. It will pick up any extra solder on your workstation. This is the only item that we make in-house. We'll hopefully soon have a video on how to make these, but it is the helping hand. This is to hold any wires in place while you're working on them, like so. You can move this in any way, and you can hold it up for your view. I'm just using this cord as an example, but you get the picture. These are great. These are malleable. They'll be put into any position you need them to. Sometimes you use 2 of them. It's not a bad thing to have 2 of them. There are metal ones that you can find online as an alternative, like I said before, but it's a lot cheaper to get some wire, get a little alligator clip, and get a block of wood and do it yourself sometimes. We have a sewing kit. We like to take a pill bottle, clean it out, and then reuse it. All that's in here is a piece of foam with a needle stuck through it and thread already threaded onto it. Very simple, very easy to transport and keep in something like this. Highly recommend. Only other item that we have in this kit that we do make here is our test switch. The test switch I technically did omit from the list, as it is not 100% required to have in your kit, and it is something we make in-house that is not as easy to find. You can test your toy by touching the two ends together once you've finished adapting it. You just can't test it once you've added the jack on. But we have plenty of photos on our website on how to adapt the jack, so you should know if you've done it correctly or not. In any case, we will have a video on how to make this if you would like to include it inside the kit you make at home. And for the very, very final items in our kit, just a few things that are going to come in your kit if you borrow it from us. If you make it at home, all of the resources you have are online to make these and or write them up. So we have a kit checklist. Always useful to have a checklist. Maybe if you're at home and making your own, you borrow it out to a friend and you want to make sure all your items come back. That might be a trust issue, but maybe not a bad idea. A RePlay card with more of our information. Of course, if you're seeing this online, you already know who we are, and you can click our link in the description to our website, and some instructions that come along with that. These are all just basic instructions on making sure you're safely using your soldering iron, some general soldering tips, and more information on how to find us. Of course, our instructions database is on our website. All that information is below as well, and you should have no trouble finding it under our tabs. There you have it. That is everything that is inside one of RePlay's volunteer at home toolkits. I hope this shows you exactly what we're using, and I hope this inspires you to make your own at home. Sometimes you might not need every item in this kit. It's as easy as sewing a toy shut after cutting some wires and soldering together. But other times you might be dealing with a plush that you need to get in to a battery compartment, and you need to file a notch in it that needs to be hot glued shut and sewed closed. You never know. Of course, like I said previously, all the resources that you could ever need are on our website. That is replayforkids.org. That is down in the description with all of these other tools, and I hope you have a wonderful day.